Hello there, my most amazing artists. Today, we are going to be creating a pattern background for our future project. When I say pattern, I'm talking about a line, shape, or color that repeats 3 or more times. There are a lot of different types of lines, there are a lot of different shapes, and there are a lot of colors that you can use to create a pattern. Now, what I am doing today is I'm using a white crayon to draw patterns on this egg template. It's a little tricky to see, but you can see there's an outline here. And what I've done is I have just gone across the page. Let's show you. I have just gone across the page with my different patterns. So maybe I had some zigzag lines, or maybe this one was triangles, and this one was a wavy line. And all the while I'm going down, I'm keeping them close, and I am pushing hard with my crayon or my oil pastel. That's going to ensure that this works well. Then I'm going to come back with either watercolors, or in this case, we're actually going to be using something known as bleeding tissue paper. Here you can see various colors of paper that I have. And what I'm going to try to do is use these to create a beautiful layered effect of color. We're going to put these all over our egg, and I'm going to put them down using a paintbrush and some water. So now that I have my crayon over the entire thing, I'm going to start at the top of my egg, and I'm simply going to add this right on top. I'm kind of brushing just a little bit, and I'm adding those on, sticking them down, touching the surface. I go back, I get some more water, stick it down over the entire thing. I'm going to spread it out a little bit. Just want some water over here. Just enough for it to stick. And we're going to do this to the entire surface of the egg, and then we will see what it looks like when it is all finished. It's okay if it's a little uneven. You just want to make sure that you fill all the gaps. These colors are going to blend and mix together, so if you have two colors that are opposite on the color wheel, you probably don't want to put them right next to each other. A safe bet is always yellow, red, or blue, because you know that those colors are going to be able to mix into just about any color that you're using. They'll also make their own colors. And I'm just going to cover the entire egg, and we'll see what that looks like in just a second. Okay, and now I have completed my entire egg. I've covered the entire thing. So I'm going to let this dry before I take any of the paper off, and we will reveal the pattern underneath. Okay, now that we have completed our egg, we can see the pieces are already starting to fall off where they are dry. And we can finish peeling those off to reveal our pattern, which we made in crayon, right? And then after this step, we are just going to cut this out. Okay, and this is what our egg looks like when we are finished. We are going to make sure that this is completely dry before we pull off the paper, and we are going to cut out our egg. Okay, now I'm just going to show you how I cut out my egg and what it looks like when we're done, and then we will save this egg for next week's lesson. Remember, when I'm cutting, that I want to cut away from myself. My thumb goes on top in that small hole, and instead of turning my scissors, I'm going to turn my paper with my other hand. I'm going to get as close to or right on top of that line as I can as I work my way around. Again, I'm not turning my scissors, they're just facing away from myself, cutting around the entire shape of the egg. slowly. Open and shut. You can even kind of turn your paper as you're shutting them slowly, and that'll give you a nice curved line. And then again, we'll want to make sure that we have this put up somewhere safe for next week, and that we have all those other materials that we might need for this project. Have fun! Now that we have our egg cut out, we can come back and we can create our chick that goes inside of our egg. Remember, if you don't want to make a chick, you don't have to, especially if you're at home, but we are going to be adding chicks to ours, and I'm going to show you how. So, I have my egg. I'm going to lay it down on top of a yellow sheet of construction paper. This is the paper I will be using for my chick. I am going to use a pencil, and right around the top half of my egg, so I find about halfway, I'm going to gently just trace around that shape just really quick so that I have an idea of where my chick needs to go, so that I know that it's going to fit. It has to go within these lines, okay? And from here, I could maybe even start a little lower, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a curved line, okay, just a hill. And I think I am going to do this with a Sharpie. You don't have to use a Sharpie if you don't want to, but I'm going to try to use a Sharpie for mine. So I'm going to use this Sharpie, tracing just right on top of that line. Remember, the other line that I just made is not that important. I might leave a little space here because I like to add a little something else to mine. I think in this case, instead of like a bow, I might add something like a crown. So in order to do that, I would just make a shape like this. Okay, now again, this is not something you have to do. I just think it's fun to add a little bit something extra to mine. Now, I want to draw in my eyes, but I want to make sure that I'm not going too low on our paper because we have to add a space down here so that we can add glue, and this part's going to get covered up. So I want to make sure when I add my eyes, they're high enough up on my chick. I'm just going to draw 2 circles. You can make them however big you want, however cutesy you want, however silly you want. That part's all up to you. I'm going to color them in completely because what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little circle on top to create the highlight of the eye. Now from here, I am going to come back and I am going to draw a beak. Okay, now there are 2 ways you could draw a beak. You could add a beak by simply drawing a triangle shape. Okay, or if you want to draw one that looks like it's chirping, you could draw something more like this. 1 triangle here, and then it opens at the bottom like this, leaving a little room for like a little tongue, and maybe his little nose, okay? You could even point it downwards if you want. This part's kind of up to you, the style of it, okay? Now, from here, you can use whatever materials you want. You could use a marker, you could use crayons to color this in. Remember, if you have other features that you want to include, you might want to color those in. If you felt like you wanted to add feathers or something to yours, you can. Okay, remembering that everything is underneath this line so that it is not going to get stuck outside of our egg. If we draw it too big, it won't make sense, and we won't be able to hide our chick inside. And we want it to be a real surprise. So from here, all I have to do is cut this chick out, and I'm going to glue it on my egg once I cut it in half. So I'm going to snip across the bottom of my chick, just like so. Okay, save this other paper for later. You'll notice I only used like half my sheet of paper instead of doing it right in the center. Cutting around. Remember when I cut, same thing as our egg, I'm turning my paper. Okay, in this case, I'll come back and I'll cut that crown out a little bit more, but I just want to get through this and show you what we're aiming for. Okay, and then, like I said, with the hole punch, I'm going to add some things too. this. So I have just like a little white sheet of paper here. I have a hole punch that I'm going to use, and I'll help you with this part if you need help. Okay, and then I'm just going to glue these pieces onto the eyes so that you get like a little highlight effect, right? I think that way makes a big difference in how realistic it is. Okay, and then I'm going to use this glue stick, and we're going to have to cut this in half. I just, again, want to make sure that this is going to fit in here, so I'm going to cut somewhere right along this line. If I lay it on top, I can kind of see where my chick is going to fit. I remember that this part is going to be underneath, so I'm going to have to add glue, scoot it down a little bit. I think we'll cut it right about here. And I'm going to cut a zigzag line. Turn, 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 back and forth. Okay, this is how we make our egg. Something like that. Okay, I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to add glue on each one of these points where I know my chick's going to fit. Stick them on, press it flat. There you go. Now the very last thing that we are going to need to do is we are going to need to be able to attach this piece so that we can create a hinge. Okay, and the way that we're going to do that is, again, I'm going to use my hole punch, just like this, right about here, and I will help you with this step. Okay, I punch through, I take my brad fastener, I push it through, I'm going to flip it over, and happy Easter.